Hello everyone, and this is a video that I've been sort of planning for quite some time, and it's just a basic overview of my experience so far in using vintage lenses on a mirrorless, mostly full frame camera, with one exception today, and that is one particular lens which I've only used on my EM1 Mark II, which is filming this, a micro four thirds system. The lenses that you see in front of you, there are 6 which I'm going to talk about briefly today, and then I'll do some follow-up videos over the next few months as I use the remaining lenses and get a better feel for them. But the reason why this video is being uploaded earlier than I anticipated is because my good friends at K&F Concept, Kent Faith, are celebrating in July, later on this month, their 7th anniversary. Now that doesn't sound very long ago, does it really? 7 years ago. And to coincide with that anniversary, they're having basically, whether you'd call it a fire sale or not, perhaps that's being a bit cruel, but they are having a tremendous sale with big discounts off literally all of their items. And in addition to that, they have been very kind in providing me with a discount code which will give you a further 20% off any purchases you make. Now, I have put a post on the community tab of the channel. So I think it runs from the 10th, and then there's a gap of a couple of days, and then it runs again until the end of the month. So just check the post. I'll put details down below in the under here, basically, so you know exactly when this extra 20% discount is available to you. You know by now probably that I purchased an original Mark I version of the Sony A7 to do this particular exercise, because I wanted to give each of these vintage lenses the opportunity to show their full potential, or in some cases lack of potential. So to equip myself to fit these lenses onto the Sony A7, I purchased, first of all, just let me make sure I've got the right one, here we are. I purchased an E-mount to M42 adapter from K&F Concept. Now, although they still produce cheaper versions, I have opted for what they call their Gen 3, third generation of adapters. Sorry for the rustling paper, plastic bag. I'll just put a brief turntable video up for you so you get an idea of what these things look like. They are tremendously well made. I've purchased lens adapters in the past which have come nowhere near close to the quality of these. Now, you might say, well, I would say that, wouldn't I, because they've been, 2 of them have been given to me by K&F Concept gratis, free of charge. Guilty as charged. But believe me, this one is one that I purchased myself, and as soon as I got it I thought, my goodness me, I mean, they're £20–25 to buy. It varies a little bit depending on the lens mount that you want to adapt to, but they are superbly machined. They all feature a nice highlight orange metallic band around them, and each and every one is painted with a very flat matte black paint around the inside. So the risk of getting refraction and reflected light bouncing in and around and onto your sensor is much reduced with these. They're really, really good. Believe me or not, I don't care. So I purchased the E-mount to M42, and then I specified I was being really cheeky, but I specified to K&F Concept that I would have liked a E-mount to Minolta MD, which is the second one that they provided me, and also an E-mount to Olympus OM, because I already had a couple of lenses in these fittings. So over the past few weeks I've been shooting these lenses with the A7, and I thought today, I mean, if you've watched the channel before, you'll know that at the moment I've got 15 vintage lenses. I didn't want to review or talk about all of them in one video, because that would really go on and on and on. I've selected 6, and they are either wide angle or standard 50mm lenses from various manufacturers. One of which I have found to be amazing, and one of which I expected to be amazing, but has been terrible. Anyway, we'll start off with the little 30mm Pentacon, which again, if you've watched the channel, I have already used this on my Micro Four Thirds cameras, and it's been reasonably good. I've got no real complaints about it. In terms of its physical build quality, it's nice. It's a preset lens. Makes no difference, because when you're using manual lenses you're going to be setting exposure manually anyway, so that really is no longer an issue. It's compact, it's well made, and I've been really quite happy with that lens, as I hope you will see from a few of the images that I'm going to put up as I give you my spiel. The second lens that I've tried is the Minolta MD 50mm 1.7 Rockor. It's one of the later lenses from Minolta with the rubberized focusing grip. And what I do like about the later Minolta lenses is that they were all stamped with the focal length actually on the side of the barrel, which means that if you're rooting around in your hold-all or backpack and you're trying to differentiate between a 50mm and a 28 and a 24, looking at that makes it an awful lot easier. Nice touch. I wish other people would do the same thing, really. This is a really nice lens. It has got a wee bit of fungus behind the front element, just in the very edge. I don't think it's affected the images to any great extent. Again, build quality on this has been really, really good. Like it a lot. So that's the Minolta 50mm Rockor. Then we come to a lens which everyone would expect me to rate very highly, and that of course is the Super Takumar 50mm 1.4 lens, which I've had for probably longer than the vast majority of these vintage lenses. And when I first got it, no doubt, if you watch the video, because this is a radioactive lens, it had yellowed with the passage of time. So I had to get that treated. I purchased a very cheap ultraviolet lamp and left it shining through the lens for about 72 hours, and it cleaned it up. And if I hold it up to the light, it is pretty much clear now. It's lost that very distinct yellow cast, and it was so bad that it was affecting the images straight out of camera. I'm glad to say that that particular problem has now vanished, at least for the time being. It's always a mistake to look at the lens at an angle, because the actual coating of the lens does have a yellow tint to it. So if you're checking whether it is yellowed because of aging, then you need to look straight through it. And at least for now, it's pretty good. And yes, I'm happy with it. I like the quality of the outer focus backgrounds that it gives, and it's a sharp lens for sure. And of course 1.4 does give you tremendous separation between foreground and background. Really nice. But you know, I would have expected nothing less from that lens. The two surprises from these 5 are, first and foremost, the Fujinon, which is a 55mm 1.8. It's in Pentax Praktica screw thread M42. I wasn't expecting anything fantastic from this, but oh my goodness, it's razor sharp. I absolutely adore this lens. It's relatively early. I'm just trying to think which later Fuji film SLRs used the lenses with the rubberized grip around the focusing, but it's gone from my mind. If I can find an image of one, I'll put it up on screen. So this is sort of definitely 70s, early 70s I'm guessing, but wow, really, really good lens. Well made. I was fortunate enough to get it with original cap, original Fuji cap, lens cap. Just a lovely, lovely lens. That was a real surprise. That's a goodie, as is the Super Takumar, of course. Now, the lens which I was expecting to be excellent, and it isn't, is this. Now, it's the wide angle, it's the Kimura Non 20mm f2.8. Two things about this lens. One, its size. If I compare it to the little 30mm Pentacon, you can see the difference in size, and also it weighs a ton. It's a really solid, beefy lump of a lens, but it's so soft at the edges, I really can't tell you. Hopefully I'll be able to show you with a couple of the images that I've taken with it so far. I've not used it very much because my first outing with it, I was just really disappointed with the results, I'll be honest with you. It's nice and sharp in the center, but boy oh boy does it fade away at the edges. And in my opinion, that's a great shame. I was expecting great things from this. One thing I think you have to bear in mind with any vintage glass is that you might obtain a pup, a bad example, you know, a Friday afternoon example when it came off the production line, and people were more concerned about getting home to their families. But I don't know what it is. Mechanically, it's beautiful. It really feels absolutely perfectly made. There's no slop in it whatsoever. It's M42 thread again, but that's the big disappointment for me out of these first 7 lenses. I've got 5 here, sorry, 8 lenses. The 5 here are either wide angle or standard. Let me just slide these out of the way. I'm going to bring on 3 different lenses now. One is a zoom lens, and let's kick off with that. And this is where I should do the drum roll, and this motion picture film is brought to you by, ta-da! Hopefully I've been able to put a slide up on the screen, otherwise you'll think I've lost the plot. Okay, this is a 70 to 210 f4 to 5.6 infravision zoom lens. I got this from the Real Camera Company in Liverpool, and I just had to buy it because what a name for a lens, infravision. It sounds like something from a Jerry Anderson Thunderbirds type puppet program, doesn't it? Or Space 1999, that kind of thing. Infravision, 70 to 210. And you know, it's been fun. It's one of these push-pull designs which were very prominent in the 70s and 80s. And I've been using this. This is in Minolta MD mount. And it works fine. I've actually, because of the zooming action, the push-pull, I personally find this action easier to use when I want to do a long exposure and zoom during the exposure. I find it easier to push and pull rather than twist. So if you're not used to that technique, you need to use a fairly slow shutter speed, 15th, 8th of a second, something like that. And as you trip the shutter, you zoom either in slightly or out slightly, and so you get a partially sharp image and the rest of the image blurs out as the lens zooms in. And I just find it easier to do that technique with a push-pull zoom rather than the twist type, which is pretty much standard these days. So, you know, a £20 zoom lens, in fact it was less than £20. I have no idea who made it. I'm damn sure that there was no such optical manufacturer as Infravision. Maybe it's Cosina, Tokina, I don't know. But it's a good little performer, and for a bit of fun, well worth, I think it was £15–16, something like that. Now, of the three lenses that I've got here, this one is probably the odd one out because it's micro four third fitting. I was fully expecting it to be a T2 mount, which it isn't, and that was my mistake. It wasn't anything to do with the seller. But it's a Makinon 300mm 5.6 mirror lens, or catadioptric lens to be technically accurate. And I purchased this because I thought, well, that is a lot smaller than most of the 500mm mirror lenses. And at 5.6 it's a wee bit faster, and it's also light, perfect to go on micro four thirds. Basically I bought the adapter separate to the lens, and I want to talk about this because I've got no real complaints or that much experience about Kiwi. This is a Kiwi lens adapter, and if you compare the quality of this to the quality of the K&F Concept mounts, there really is no contest. And my biggest complaint with this, and to be fair, I have to be fair to Kiwi, because it rattles when it's on the lens. Hopefully you can hear that, and it's so annoying when you're trying to use it. However, when you hit focus with this, it does give some pretty sharp results. Of course you do get the donut out of focus highlights in the background. Some people like them. I guess the majority of people hate them, but for my money, I think it was £25 including the mount. Can't complain. So the final lens of these three that I want to talk about, a little bit special, this one. For a start, it's the only lens I've ever purchased that comes in its own cardboard tube with nice flocking on the outside. A little bit tatty, but considering it's 60–70 years old, it's amazing that I've still got the original packaging for it. And this is a 135mm f4.5 lens, manufactured in Germany by Schacht of Ulm. Oh gosh, tight fit too. Now, mechanically, this is a work of art. Even came with the original lens caps, front and rear. Satin chrome finish, which was typical from that sort of 1960s period. There is one mark on the barrel, but that's all. Optically, it's absolutely gorgeous. It is renowned for giving very smooth out of focus highlights in the background, and that is mainly because it has a 12-bladed aperture diaphragm. So you do get beautifully circular out of focus highlights. And the results I've got from it so far, just lovely. But is it a telephoto? Do you know the difference between a telephoto lens and a long focus lens? Well, a telephoto lens should always be shorter than its focal length. It should be physically shorter than its focal length. And this is exactly 135 millimeters from lens flange to filter thread. Another thing that might help me describe this as a long focus lens rather than telephoto is the fact that telephoto lenses should have optics towards the rear of the lens, a group of negative lens elements, and that helps to physically shorten the length of the barrel. This doesn't, and in actual fact, don't worry, this is not serious. If I unscrew the front of the lens, all the optics are contained right at the very front. And if I do my Paul Daniels magic trick, the tube is absolutely empty, nothing in there whatsoever. All you've got is the focusing helicoid. So technically, this ought to be described as a long focus lens. And typically long focus lenses are like those very cheap 500mm preset ones that you can buy brand new for £50–60. More often than not, they're going to be long focus lenses. It's not necessarily a bad thing. I think there's a good argument for saying that a long focus lens gives less vignetting than certain telephoto lenses, but this I'm absolutely delighted with. It's beautiful. So we'll just pop it back in its cardboard tube. It's like something out of Blue Peter, for those of you in the UK that know. Here's one I prepared earlier. There we go. A lovely, lovely lens. Now, just finally, for those of you that are bitten by the vintage glass bug, because believe me, it does bite quite hard, there are a couple of YouTube channels I can highly recommend. The most well known is Simon Utak, and he has over the years reviewed hundreds probably of vintage lenses, and he is highly respected. But there is a new kid on the block, and he's from Wales, and his channel is called A Fistful of Lenses. And if you haven't seen it, please go and take a look. It's well worth subscribing. He deserves to succeed. He does a very practical and down-to-earth job of reviewing the lenses that he owns, and he also has a unique style. I won't say any more than that, but I'm hooked, and I hope you will follow my recommendation and give him a like and hopefully a subscribe as well. So there we are. That's the first sort of installment, if you like, a long version of my approach to using vintage glass on a mirrorless digital camera body. If you're enjoying the video and enjoying your photography, that's all I ask. Until the next time, take care, and I'll see you all very soon. Bye bye for now.